Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is for the second cycle of warm-ups for the year for World Cultures, and this is part two. From this little presentation, you'll be able to actually complete the warm-up template for cycle two, because these are the lessons, I believe lesson 5 and 6, which will help you complete that for full credit. Please remember to type down the question in full and also to type down the answer or talking points provided in full. Let's get started. From Monday and Tuesday's lesson, the question was, what specific factors determine people's culture or socioeconomic status around the world? Be specific. So what I want to do right now is give you a overarching analysis, if you will, of how people determine one's socioeconomic status and also their cultural components that might stem from that in this way. The first factor that needs to be discussed here are some basic facts about wealth and inequality around the world. The fact is that there's 195 countries around the world as we speak. 25 are super rich. But the average wealth per person in these countries is about $100,000 per year. On the flip side of that, in the 20 poorest countries in our world, the per capita wealth is less than $1,000 per year. I mean, just look at that disparity between those two numbers provided. Additionally, every country is on a path to growth worldwide. This is true. Countries are growing in their GDP and, of course, what they're able to provide with their science and technology and international markets ever shifting. However, the poorest of the poor are obviously growing the slowest. There are a few factors that determine a country's socioeconomic status and also might affect their cultural traditions too. The first is institutions. And institutions are basically entities that provide some source of service, goods, or assistance to the people living within a country. That's why some countries around the world you have rich countries and poor countries. Many people think it's the institutions that a country has, like say their government or maybe their assistance programs that they might have to assist the citizenry. Additionally, you also have geography. Geography is a huge factor too in determining a country's socioeconomic status, mostly because of the physicality of where they are around the world. You know, do they have good next door neighbors? Do they have access to resources? Do they have access to water? Those types of things we'll discuss in full in this lesson. And last but certainly not least, culture. When you look at a country's values and ideologies and what they place emphasis on, and whether or not they're religious or not, look at their morals, and when you look at how they plan and prepare for the future, these types of aspects have proven to determine whether or not they are in fact on a path of wealth or, of course, being unwealthy on the opposite side of that spectrum. So these are just a few of the different factors that affect a country's socioeconomic status. For the latter part of the week, for lesson 6, the question was, what exactly is gross national happiness, and what does the study of GNH tell us about people and culture around the world specifically? Before I begin, I just want to make sure I preface this. GNH, or gross national happiness, may not sound like a real study, but it actually is. In fact, the study of GNH actually originated in a country called Bhutan, which is in Asia. It was started by the king of this country, and he was interested in uplifting the status of the citizens' well-being within his country. Over time, what happened is that an idea began to form, that every human aspires for some type of level of happiness. But what is happiness? To us in America, many people might describe as living the American dream of, getting married, having a family, having a house, having a lawn, as being a sign of happiness and virtue. But maybe countries and cultures around the world don't value that in that same way. Another idea is this. The king wanted to balance economic development with emotional well-being and culture. Just because you have money, does that necessarily mean you're happy? That very idea was put on trial by the people who looked at gross national happiness. They also wanted to provide the funds and assistance to programs that matter to uplift the citizenry. So in other words, going back to the idea of institutions, good governments, in theory, who have happy citizens get some type of assistance or relief or aid, maybe, from their government, especially during tough and trying times. How secure are those things, and what types of advancements can be made in those programs to uplift the citizenry even more? Another compelling idea is that this was turned into an actual academic study by scientists in Europe. I believe it was the Netherlands. And they were able to actually look at this and to put together different types of surveys to ask people how happy they are. And they took those numbers from those surveys, to really assess the inner workings of happiness within certain specified countries. You guys will be taking a brief modified sample survey from those scientists later on in this lesson. The results were staggering. Some countries, the scientists found, that were genuinely happy are countries that you may not expect to be happy. Once again, I think that's due in part to the fact that we have this lens that we look at the world through. What is happiness to us may not be happiness to them. And so looking at these dynamics help us understand what happiness means in the world. And also some countries that you would expect to be happy were definitely not far up there. In fact, I think the United States of America, according to the latest G&H studies, were not even in the top 10. So that really makes you think about the essence of happiness and being content in one's life. So there you have it, guys. Those are all the answers to the question of the day. Please let me encourage you to go ahead and once again make sure that you have the answers formatted correctly in a different colored font, and also make sure you have the questions typed down in full. Please remember to submit on Google Classroom, and you should receive a grade here momentarily with feedback. Thank you very much.